no good cowboys.
For what?
For cutting up a lady, cut up her face, cut her eyes out, cut her ears off. How about it, Will?
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 1992 classic Clint Eastwood western Unforgiven. The film is of course directed by Clint Eastwood, stars Clint Eastwood as well as Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman, Richard Harris and Saul Rubinek. Now the film focuses on the retired gunslinger William Money, played by Clint Eastwood, who is approached by the Schofield Kid, who tells William Money that there is some money to be made as two cowboys cut up a prostitute quite badly, and there's $1,000 reward for anybody that kills the two cowboys involved that the prostitutes are putting up. William Money, who is not particularly doing quite well as a pig farmer, decides to leave his two children for a couple of weeks, head off and meet up with the Schofield Kid. Along the way, he picks up his old partner, Ned Logan, played by Morgan Freeman, and the three of them head off to try and take down these cowboys. However, in the town of Big Whiskey, Gene Hackman plays Little Bill, the sheriff, who rules with an iron fist. And he will not allow anybody to carry firearms there, and he will absolutely not allow assassins in order to exact their revenge. However, this leads to a brutal and bloody confrontation with William Money by the end of the picture. Right, what are my thoughts on Unforgiven? Well, I do review a lot of Clint Eastwood films on this channel. There's a playlist dedicated, I believe, to Clint Eastwood's movies on this channel. He is my favourite actor of all time. And after recently, over at the Dan's Movie Cave, taking part in like a 4-hour live stream where we talked and celebrated Clint Eastwood movies, I'll leave the link in the description below to that live stream. Please head over there and watch it, guys, and also don't forget to subscribe to Dan's channel as well, and everybody else's channel who was involved in that discussion, Eastwood for Life fan and 101 Bronson. But it kind of, you know, re-inspired me to continue and start watching, you know, some of my favourite Clint Eastwood films again, and some that I haven't certainly reviewed on the channel. And this is certainly one of them. Now, Unforgiven, I think, is celebrated as one of the greatest westerns ever made. And it absolutely is. It really is. When this film came out in '92, Clint Eastwood was the toast of Hollywood. Up to this point, I mean, before this film came out, it's worth noting as well that it had about 4 or 5 financial failures in regards to the box office. White Hunter, Black Heart, Pink Cadillac, and 2 or 3 more. So it wasn't exactly, you know, riding a wave of success at this point in his career, Clint Eastwood. So this was a big risk, really. You know, he hadn't done a western for a few years. Westerns weren't exactly fashionable in the 90s and 1992 when this came out. So, but when it came out, it was celebrated by everybody. Critics loved it, audiences loved it, and the Academy loved it. You got 2 Oscars for this, Clint Eastwood, Best Director and Best Picture, and it was so deserved, and he was absolutely the toast of Hollywood. And this is something we did discuss on this live stream. We all agreed that this film, we think, is the one that cemented him as an absolute legend. Since this film came out, after this film came out, you know, everybody was eagerly anticipating Clint Eastwood films and the films he was directing, all that kind of stuff, and it's continued on for many, many years. And many regard him one of the greatest directors now of all time, never mind actors of all time. And it's just such a beautifully made film. It's very poignant. It doesn't glorify violence. If anything, it does exactly the opposite. And at this point in his career, Clint Eastwood wanted to make a statement about violence. And in actual fact, it's an interesting story of how he got to cast Gene Hackman, because Gene Hackman, I think many years previously, was offered to play the role of William Money, and he turned it down. And this is before Clint Eastwood got hold of it, and he held the rights to this film for a long time, Clint Eastwood, and he obviously wanted to wait until he was the right age to play William Money. And Gene Hackman just wasn't interested initially. He'd had enough of making violent movies, and he wanted to move away from them. And after a long conversation with Clint Eastwood essentially said to him, "Please read it again, because I think we could say something important about violence, you know." And he reread it, Gene Hackman, and he agreed that the perspective of the film actually is not glorifying violence in any way, shape, or form. And he agreed to do the film, thankfully. And we all know, you know, what a performance Gene Hackman gave, and he got his Oscar. And we've got Richard Harris as well in this film, another industry veteran at this point in his career. Another interesting story, how Richard Harris was cast, because Clint Eastwood apparently rang his home, spoke to Richard Harris's wife, I think it was. And this is on YouTube. You can see Clint Eastwood talking about this and the Gene Hackman story. And he says, "Can I speak to Richard Harris?" And his wife starts saying, "Who is it?" He says, "It's Clint Eastwood." And she didn't believe him. And the reason she didn't believe him is because Richard Harris, at the time of Clint Eastwood calling, was watching High Plains Drifter. So what a coincidence that is. But yeah, we got Richard Harris, we got Gene Hackman, and then we got Morgan Freeman as Ned. What an absolute cast of legends that we've got here in this film. And this was actually a point in Morgan Freeman's career where, you know, he was just really on the rise, because he came quite late into the movie biz. He'd done Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and Driving Miss Daisy and things like that. And it was while he was making Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, where he came across the script for this and actively pursued it. And it's just pitched beautifully. I've also seen interviews with Clint Eastwood where he talks. If you watch the documentary of The Outlaw Josie Wales, Clint Eastwood's talking on that, how The Outlaw Josie Wales, I think he says if that had come out at the same time as Unforgiven, it probably would have been as celebrated as Unforgiven. And I completely agree with him. For me, The Outlaw Josie Wales is his greatest Western. This is like, you know, you could argue a close second. I think this came out just at the right time, in a sense of what it's saying about violence and killing and everything. It just is done so well. And then you've got the added element of this film that just makes it even more amazing, is you get this character, William Money, played by Clint Eastwood. We get to hear throughout this film some of the things that he's done in the past, some of the awful things that he regrets, and he's constantly saying, "I'm not going back to be that person. I'm not going back to the way I was." And then by the 3/4 of the way through the film, when he learns about what's happened to Ned, his friend, killed at the hand of Gene Hackman, you see William Money rise again, and he absolutely. The ending of this, I think, is probably one of the best endings of any movie, never mind a Western, when you see William Money drunk and determined for revenge, bursting into that saloon. The whole end sequence where he kills the barman and then just takes out everybody there. Again, it's not flashy. Like, so you see some gunfights in Clint Eastwood's films in the past, and they're shot beautifully, and they're like, the fast gunslinger and all this kind of stuff. It's not. This feels grounded, gritty, and realistic, the Unforgiven one. The fact that most cowboys were terrible shots, probably, and even though many of them had the opportunity to kill William Money at the end of this film, they panicked and they were scared, and every single shot missed, whereas he didn't panic. He was calm, and he took them all out. And then the bit where he goes out into the streets and threatens basically to kill anybody that takes a shot at him. It sends shivers down your spine. It's just a perfect ending to a film. And it's just, you leave the film on a complete and utter high. Because up to that point, you could argue the film's quite slow. I mean, absolutely beautifully shot, beautifully performed, pitch perfect performances, and great story and characters. But it doesn't really kick off until the last 20 minutes, really, this film, in regards to gunfights, and, you know, goose pimple moments, I suppose. And for me, it's just an absolute masterpiece, a Clint Eastwood masterpiece that I just think is an incredible film. And for me, definitely right up there with one of Clint Eastwood's greatest films of all time. And it's a film that I rewatched to do this review, and it's absolutely aged like a fine wine. It feels like the first time you've watched it when you rewatch the film. So yeah, guys, absolutely brilliant. If you've never seen Unforgiven, it's a completely no-brainer. Give it a watch, but also don't forget to head over to Dan's Movie Cave and check out that live stream that we did if you're a fan of Clint Eastwood. I promise you you'll enjoy it, and I will be back, of course, with loads more reviews, and including, definitely keep your eye open for plenty more Clint Eastwood reviews very soon on the channel.